Welcome back to the absolute apex of high-stakes corporate tennis analysis. If you are tuning into the mainstream broadcast networks to watch the Indian Wells round of 16, you are being sold a heavily sanitized, artificially sweetened narrative. The commentators are going to look at the upcoming matchup between Alex Eala and Linda Nosková, and they are going to call it a clash of rising stars. They are going to use words like fairy tale, dream run, and exciting youth movement. They want you to believe that this is just a friendly, competitive stepping stone for two young girls living out their childhood fantasies in the California desert. That is not just a lie. It is a fundamental, catastrophic misunderstanding of the ruthless macroeconomic forces currently tearing the WTA Tour apart. You are not about to watch a fairy tale. You are about to witness a brutal, unforgiving boardroom liquidation. You are about to watch two apex predators, representing two entirely different, heavily subsidized corporate tennis infrastructures, walk into a steel cage to determine who gets to monopolize the future of the sport's baseline economy. When Alex Eala steps onto the court to face the 20-year-old Czech phenom Linda Nosková, she is not playing for a trophy. She is playing for absolute, unadulterated market dominance, and the loser of this match will be violently relegated to the margins of the global attention economy. To fully comprehend the sheer magnitude and the terrifying stakes of this specific matchup, we must first conduct a complete forensic audit of the opponent. Linda Nosková is not merely a tennis player. She is the latest, most highly optimized product rolling off the assembly line of the most ruthlessly efficient tennis manufacturing plant on the planet, the Czech Republic system. The Czech tennis infrastructure does not produce artists, it produces terminators. It is a highly organized, state-backed corporate machine designed to mass-produce tall, lethal, flat-hitting baseline assets that completely overwhelm the opposition through sheer, unadulterated kinetic violence. Noskova is the crown jewel of this current manufacturing cycle. At 5'10", she possesses a physiological and biomechanical advantage that allows her to generate devastating leverage on her ground strokes. She does not play tennis to construct points. She plays tennis to end them abruptly, violently, and without a single ounce of empathy for the player on the other side of the net. She is a walking, breathing hostile takeover, attempting to violently disrupt the establishment. We are not talking about a player who simply has potential. We are talking about an asset with a proven, historically documented track record of executing massive corporate assassinations on the biggest stages in the world. Look at her operational history.
Grand Slam stage came in the 2024 Australian Open, where she stunned the tennis world by defeating world number 2 Iga Swiatek on her.
Let that sink in for a moment. She stunned the tennis world by defeating world number 2 Iga Swiatek at the Australian Open. Iga Swiatek is not just a player, she is a global monopoly. She is a multi-million-dollar defensive fortress that most players simply accept they cannot breach. When the vast majority of the WTA Tour draws Swiatek, they mentally pack their bags and prepare for a 60-minute liquidation. Noskova drew Swiatek in Melbourne, looked directly into the eyes of the establishment, and pulled the trigger without a fraction of a second of hesitation. That victory was not a fluke. It was a massive, neon-lit declaration to the entire global sports economy that Noskova possesses the psychological psychosis required to bankrupt the top-tier assets of the sport. You cannot teach that kind of cold-blooded execution. It requires a fundamental lack of respect for the hierarchy, a deeply ingrained belief that the legacy players are nothing more than decaying assets waiting to be pushed off the ledger. This level of ruthless aggression has fueled one of the most violently rapid ascensions in the modern history of the sport. In the corporate world, you evaluate an asset based on its year-over-year growth and its ability to aggressively capture market share in a highly saturated environment. Noskova's trajectory is the definition of hyper-growth.
And like Eala, Noskova has been a fast riser, becoming the youngest player in the WTA Top 100 in 2022.
Becoming the youngest player in the WTA Top 100 in 2022. And then breaking into the top 50 just a year later. This is not a slow, methodical climb. This is an algorithmic scaling operation. Noskova bypassed the traditional, grueling initiation period of the Pro Tour. While other players were spending years grinding in the miserable, low-budget ITF circuit, begging for points and fighting off financial ruin, Noskova simply kicked down the front door of the top 50 and demanded a seat in the boardroom. She has already captured a WTA title. She has already tasted the rarefied air of the world's top 15. She arrives at Indian Wells not as a challenger, hoping for a good result, but as a fully vested stakeholder, expecting to secure a massive dividend. She operates with the overwhelming, suffocating arrogance of a player who knows exactly how much damage her physical toolkit can inflict. Let us break down the exact biomechanical mechanism of that damage, because understanding Noskova's physical profile is the only way to understand the terrifying geometric puzzle that Alex Eala is being forced to solve. Noskova's game is built entirely around low-margin, high-velocity ball striking.
Powerful baseline game featuring a heavy serve, heavy ground strokes, and the ability to dictate points from the back of the court.
A heavy serve, heavy ground strokes, dictating points from the back of the court. When we talk about heavy ground strokes in the context of the Czech tennis factory, we are talking about a very specific type of ball trajectory. Noskova hits a remarkably flat ball. She does not use extreme topspin to loop the ball safely over the net. She drives the ball directly through the court, cutting off the angles, robbing her opponents of precious milliseconds of reaction time. In the dry, thin, abrasive air of the California desert, a flat, heavy ball acts like a kinetic missile. It does not sit up and wait to be hit. It skids violently through the strike zone. If you are a fraction of a second late on your footwork, if your racket preparation is delayed by a single millimeter, Noskova's pace will shatter your defensive structure, forcing you into a humiliating cascade of unforced errors. She is designed to make you feel rushed, panicked, and entirely inadequate. She is a high-frequency trading algorithm, executing trades faster than your central nervous system can process the information. So, how does Alex Eala, a player who does not possess the same raw, overwhelming height and flat kinetic power, survive this onslaught? How does the Filipina prodigy stop the Czech Terminator from simply blasting her off the court and ending this so-called fairy tale in straight sets? The answer lies in the deep, dark, heavily classified archives of their shared history. This is where the mainstream media completely drops the ball. They look at the current rankings, they look at the recent results, and they assume this is a blank slate. But professional tennis at this elite level is deeply, fundamentally psychological. It is a game of ghosts, traumas, and unpaid debts, and Alex Eala holds a psychological monopoly over Linda Nosková that dates back almost a decade.
Eala and Noskova are no strangers to each other. The Filipina beat Noskova twice during their junior careers, including
The Filipina beat Noskova twice during their junior careers. Let us stop and forensically examine this, because it is the absolute fulcrum upon which this entire Indian Wells quarterfinal hinges. In 2018, at Les Petits As, the most prestigious, high-stakes junior tournament on the planet, a tournament that operates as the ultimate proving ground for future global superstars, Eala liquidated Noskova. Then, 2 years later, on the red clay of Paris at the French Open Juniors quarterfinals, when the stakes were even higher, when the global scouting agencies were watching their every move, Eala did it again. Eala systematically dismantled the Czech powerhouse. Do you understand the compounding psychological debt that creates? Do you understand the absolute terror that is permanently hardwired into Noskova's brain? When Noskova looks across the net at Indian Wells, she is not just seeing the current world number 32. She is seeing the ghost of her own childhood failures. She is seeing the one player who proved on the biggest developmental stages in the world that raw, flat power is completely useless against elite geometric intelligence. You do not just forget those losses, you carry them with you. They fester in the back of your mind. They create microscopic fractures in your self-belief. Every time Noskova steps up to hit a critical breakpoint against Eala, her subconscious is going to drag her right back to the red dirt of Paris. Eala does not just own the baseline, she owns real estate inside Noskova's head. And at the round of 16 of a WTA 1000 event, where the margins between victory and defeat are thinner than a razor blade, that historical psychological leverage is worth its weight in solid gold. Eala's tactical blueprint for this match is a masterclass in hostile psychological warfare. Eala is a product of the Rafa Nadal Academy, an institution that does not just teach you how to hit a tennis ball, it teaches you how to weaponize suffering. Eala knows that Noskova's flat, aggressive power relies entirely on rhythm, perfect timing, and a compliant target. Eala's entire objective is to become the most uncooperative, mathematically frustrating asset on the court. She is not going to try to hit through Noskova. That would be corporate suicide. You do not fight a tank with a pistol. Instead, Eala is going to use her elite, heavy topspin to fundamentally alter the geometry of the baseline exchanges. She is going to hit the ball deep, high, and heavy, completely neutralizing the strike zone that Noskova desperately needs to flatten out her shots. Eala is going to turn this match from a high-speed sprint into a brutal, lung-burning, lactic acid-inducing war of attrition in the desert heat. Think about the physiological and psychological toll this takes on a player like Noskova. When you are a power player, your entire identity, your entire corporate valuation is built on the belief that your best shot will simply end the point. What happens when you hit your best shot? A massive 100-mile-per-hour flat forehand down the line and the ball simply comes back. What happens when you hit a second massive shot and it comes back again, higher, deeper, and heavier? Panic sets in. The algorithm begins to glitch. Noskova will be forced to hit 3, 4, 5 extra balls every single rally. The heavy desert air and the abrasive hardcourt will begin to drain her physical reserves. Her legs will get heavy, her backswing will tighten. And exactly at the moment when physical exhaustion meets the deeply ingrained psychological trauma of those junior defeats, the unforced errors will begin to cascade. Eala is the ultimate distressed asset investor. She does not force the market to crash. She simply waits patiently, perfectly positioned, while the opponent bankrupts themselves through sheer frustration and tactical stubbornness. Furthermore, we must address the macroeconomic environment surrounding this specific match. Indian Wells is the 5th Grand Slam. It is the absolute epicenter of the global tennis economy outside of the 4 majors. The billionaires are sitting in the luxury suites. The global brand directors from Nike, Rolex, and Porsche are watching closely, evaluating which of these young assets is worth a multi-million-dollar, decade-long investment. Advancing to the quarterfinals here is not just about ranking points, it is a violent, permanent shift in a player's global brand equity. If Linda Nosková wins, she validates the Czech factory model. She proves that her victory over Swiatek was not an anomaly, but the new standard operating procedure. She solidifies her status as the apex predator of the next gen. But if Alex Eala wins, the geopolitical ramifications are absolutely staggering. Alex Eala is not just representing herself, she is the sole, undisputed monopolistic entity representing the entire nation of the Philippines and its incredibly massive, hyper-engaged, highly capitalized global diaspora. We are talking about a demographic of over 110 million people who treat every single match Eala plays as a matter of absolute national security. When Eala steps onto stadium court, she brings with her an army that completely hijacks the acoustic environment of the venue. The crowd at Indian Wells will not be neutral, it will be a localized, deafening version of Manila. Noskova is used to playing in quiet, sterile European environments. She is going to walk into a wall of sound, a relentless, vibrating pressure cooker designed to isolate her, intimidate her, and force her central nervous system into a state of perpetual panic. Every double fault will be cheered. Every unforced error will be met with a roar that shakes the concrete. Eala leverages this crowd not as a distraction, but as a highly weaponized corporate shield. She draws energy from it, metabolizing the pressure of 100 million people and converting it into absolute, cold-blooded execution on the court. The mainstream media will try to tell you that Linda Nosková is the favorite because of her ranking and her explosive power. The casual fans will look at her victory over Swiatek and assume that Eala's dream run is about to be violently terminated. Let them believe the surface-level statistics. True operators, the people who actually understand the ruthless business of professional sports, know that the statistics are meaningless when confronted with historical trauma, geometric superiority, and the crushing weight of a mobilized global market. Eala has already proven that she can absorb the power of Coco Gauff, forcing the American superstar into algorithmic bankruptcy. She has already proven that the bigger the stage, the more lethal her tactical adjustments become. Noskova thinks she is walking into a standard tennis match against a rising star. In reality, she is walking blindly into a meticulously designed, psychologically devastating trap that was set 6 years ago on the junior courts of France. The baseline belongs to the player who can control the risk. The future of the sport belongs to the player who can weaponize the geometry of the court while managing the immense, suffocating pressure of the global attention economy. Alex Eala is not a fairy tale. She is a highly calibrated, state-of-the-art corporate machine designed to dismantle the legacy power structures of the WTA Tour piece by piece. The boardroom doors are locked. The audit has begun. And Linda Nosková is about to find out exactly what happens when your physical power is rendered entirely obsolete by supreme, uncompromising, monopolistic intelligence. Welcome to the brutal, unforgiving reality of tennis paradise. The hostile takeover continues right now.